done this for over 40 years now, and it's always a joy to see. So do look out to see them in the engine as they come on their way back now.
Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Shrewsbury Steam Rally here at Onslow Park. We're gathered again for perhaps the finest selection of steam engines on display in the Midlands, if not the UK. I've trouble to say the world, somebody will probably tell me I'm wrong, but very welcome to everyone, and we begin with our magnificent grand parade of steam traction engines. This cavalcade of steam's great might presents to us a wondrous sight of engines now resplendent made from years of harbouring in the shade. They came from yard and field or wood, and in their twilight silent stood, with rusting motion and boiler cold. It was for scrap that they were sold. Then in the summer's sweltering scorch, their end it was the burner's torch. But some from this grim fate were taken, the slumbering giants gently awaken. With lavish care from owners new, they are but now the chosen few, that represent a lost great power, which we present to you this hour. For these are the engines of an era long past, built by the men whose skills were the last. They made them strong to give of their best. In aging years they do not rest. They still drive on with fiery soul and beating heart that scorns control, with burnished limbs of shimmering steel and throb and pulse of circling wheel. With shining paint and polished brass, all other machines they did surpass. But for all this grace and beauty, they were made for man's duty. Hauling with ease the team's former loads up and down the country's roads. Others were the sons of soil, from ploughing and threshing they eased the toil. Then came the showman with engines so grand, each thought his the best in the land. Yet with brass and electric light, there came the strength to move the sight. This was part of their calling to man. But what of the homes where they began? Charles Burrell of Thetford, the true Norfolk breed, while Ransoms and Garretts were Suffolk seed. Next came Lincoln, its four famous sons of Roby, Clayton, Foster and Rustons. Marshals of Gainsborough in that same shire, they made engines for all to admire. Then, in Cheshire, the land of salt, Fodens were built with never a fault. But with pride, the county of Salop made their sentinels go with a gallop. Further north, in the city of Leeds, Fowler and McLaren sufficed the needs. From the Garden of England, a prancing horse, Aveling and Porter ran the course. Wallace and Stevens, with sprightly 5-ton, Tasslers nearby would give it a run. These are a few of the famous breeds, all working the purpose of man's needs. And now to you this hour we bring these engines for their praise to sing. With shrieking whistle and vapour cloud, their aim is now to please the crowd. So let us salute these machines from the past, built by the men whose skill was to last. They made them strong to give of their best. In aging years they do not rest.
sorry to speak over it. Could you just... Right, could we have Lorraine Davis? Lorraine Davis to rally control immediately to the control box by the commentator's box. Whoever the secretary is, please. Lorraine Davis, please. Again, Lorraine Davis to rally control.
Well, there we are, everybody, the annual parade of steam engines here at Onslow Park. Just while I try and sort my volume out a little bit, because I think I'm booming. I think you'll agree that, as ever, this is the most stupendous display of steam power that you will see in the Midlands, if not the UK. So, rather than read through the programme, I will do as I did last year, if you were here last year, and I'm going to walk around the arena and describe the engines that we can see as I talk about them. So rather than read through a programme and you think, what the earth is he talking about, I'm going to look at some of the engines as they park up around the arena. So we began our parade with the fantastic Showman's engines. They were built for driving the rides and pulling the rides for fairgrounds around the country, from the 1880s, 1890s through to the 1950s. The last Showman's engines were used in the 1950s, places like Birmingham Onion Fair, Mott Fair, and one of the last owners was Pat Collins of Blockswich in Birmingham, direction, or up that country, West Midlands. So these engines were made to pull heavy loads, so they're big, powerful road locomotives, but they also have a thing on the front called a dynamo. It's like an electric generator, so that was to power the rides themselves. So it's a mobile generator as well, so the electricity is there. You'll see these engines, some of these engines later this afternoon, back outside the fairground, doing the job they were made to do. So that generator there makes electricity to power the rides, like the dodgems and the big wheel, and all that sort of stuff, aeroplanes, cakewalk. But it also provides electric lighting. So bear in mind, in the 19th century, early 20th century, electric light was something really exciting. In fact, Paul and Bosco's Electric Coliseum, electric was one of the marketing tools that they used to say, this is modern, this is great stuff. In fact, there's a couple of Showman's engines you won't see in our lineup this afternoon because they are actually wired into the fair and working very hard. There's Raja, a little Borrell engine, made by Borrells of Thetford, and a Fowler called Repulse, which is a blue engine there at the back of one of the rides. They are both working as hard as they did the day that they were sent out to their owners. And different colours, different makes, very ornate engines, lots of gold leaf, lots of brass, lots of copper, beautiful maroon burgundy colour. Quite usually that's the colour for Showman's engines, though. The Repulse is a blue engine. There is a story behind that. Go and ask the family who have it. But these are the absolute epitome of the steam traction engine as it was in the UK. Huge amount of preparation in getting them ready in the day. It isn't just getting steam up, it's cleaning them. And certainly you can see the amount of brass and copper, certainly here on Fermoy behind me. Beautiful engine. A couple of these engines there, one of their first couple of occasions out with us. So we have Endurance here, which is owned by the Goddards, and Stuart Phillips and family who have Fermoy right behind me here, these two engines, local engines to Shropshire, but very fresh out this year. Superb restoration, but also engines, the other Showman's engines that you can see if you're moving down towards the other side of the arena, Frank Lithgow and families, the Dreadnought, again an engine that's been with us for a long time, Mike Priestner's Evening Star. So these are great Fowler and Borrell Showman's Road locomotives. In the middle, as you can see, if you're sitting where I am now, there's a little engine going away from us, George Rogers and Sons Flying Airships. That is a Garrett steam tractor. But it's a Showman's engine again. It has a dynamo for providing light, but that would be pulling the smaller rides, things like sideshows and Hook a Duck and other things like that. Yes, Mr. Cook, I can see you taking pictures of me. I'll do you later. But so many varieties of steam engine. Another Showman's coming up here, the Foden Prospector. Fodens of Sandbach, more often known for their steam lorries and steam wagons, but we have a bit of a Foden theme this year. So a number of Fodens displayed at the bottom of the steam engine line, the Foden agricultural engine behind the Showman's engine. You can see the similarity in them there, that pretty much the Showman's engine is a blinged up traction engine. It's got a few other details to it. It's got springs, it's got rubber tyres. They've both got rubber tyres now, but various things that, the Showman's engine, it's the traction engine, the Showman's engine, it's wolf in sheep's clothing really. But so many other varieties of steam power. The steam roller made for compacting the roads of the UK from the mid-19th century. Again, pretty much the last commercial steam engines in use in Britain were steam rollers. They were in use in certain parts of the country until the 1980s, not in preservation but actually working. And coupled hand in hand with that, another steam roller, the Avon Enforcer on the right, with the Sentinel steam wagon, the DG8 Sentinels of Shrewsbury. And whilst Fodens made steam wagons or steam lorries, but they made wagons with a single G, Sentinels were special and they spelt their wagons with a double G, so Wagagun. But that made the Sentinel mark something very special. The DG8 there, owned by Kevin Standing from Powys, and restored by its previous owner over about 25 years, but in the colours of tarmac, and would have worked well together with steamrollers in their commercial life. I'm conscious I don't want to get in people's pictures here. I can shoot past. But this is a great point at the top of the arena here to see these magnificent engines as they parade their way around us. And they're still coming in. We've got 90 odd engines entered into the show this year, and it is absolutely fantastic to see so many of them come together. And I mentioned Fodens. We seem to have a slew of them coming in at the moment. This Foden, the grey engine, is what's called the Agri Tractor. This was the challenge to the internal combustion engine. You can see it's got big pneumatic rear wheels. Its steam engine is enclosed. You can't see any of the moving parts. That's there for direct ploughing. The Foden D-type tractor behind it is much more of what you would expect a conventional steam tractor, but a Foden steam tractor to look like with its overtype engine. Followed by a standard Foden compound traction engine. Compound means it has two cylinders and they use the steam twice. It's a little bit more technical than that, but it basically improves the economy of the engine. And behind that Foden traction engine there, the green one with the red wheels, is another Foden steam lorry. It's about a 5-tonner, and it's presented in the colours of the War Department, because bear in mind, although the steam engine is something that was created during peacetime, steam power found its use in many different applications, including with the military. So the steam lorry there in War Department colours is a personal favourite of mine, not just because it's a steam engine and it's different, but it reminds us that steam had its part in conflict as well as peacetime, and it reminds us of the human cost of conflict. There are some really awful accounts reading that people wrote from first hand of taking steam wagons to the front in France in the First World War. Really salutary, just to show how awful conflict in war can be. The Foden followed on by more Sentinels. The S-types here, they have a shaft drive, so the engine is mounted underneath the body. If you see them go past, they're very much similar to a modern lorry. The boiler is in the back of the cab, but the engine is underneath, and it drives through a prop shaft to the rear axle. These wagons can keep up to their own with modern traffic. A number of them ran on the former Sentinel test route over the Horseshoe Pass yesterday, which is a little bit of a special thing that some of the Sentinel drivers do when they come to Onslow Park. They like to take their machines back to the works where they came from, the old Sentinel works, and they also like to go over to Ponderosa where they stop and have a bite of lunch, and then they come make their way back to the site. So as I walk around the top end of the arena, heading towards the coffee and the donut people, we're walking past another Showman's engine, another pair of Showman's engines here. This is Evening Star, Mike Priestner's Evening Star, a Fowler engine, so made in Leeds. And you can see here on the side of the water tank that this is the arms for Leeds with the two owls, the Latin there, pro lege et lege. Don't ask me what that stands for off the top of my head. GCSE Latin was a long time ago. But lovely to see. I do have a thing about Fowlers. I do like Fowler engines. They were followed by another one, Fowler Showman style engine presented by Tom French from Cumnock. We have a lot of long distance visitors at Shrewsbury. People love coming to Shrewsbury. We know you got coming to Shrewsbury as visitors, but our exhibitors love coming here as well. So to come bring your engine all the way down from Cumnock is a real sign of how special this show is. Followed on by a road locomotive, foremost, down by presented by Joe Walker and family down from Derby. This engine, the decoration on it is very similar to a Showman's engine, but it's not a Showman's engine per se. It was a road engine. It spent a lot of its life in France, and Joe and his family undertook an incredible restoration on this engine. I said I'm biased towards Fowlers. I think this is perhaps one of the finest Fowler engines that you will see on the rally scene in the UK, if not the world, today. And actually, those of you who are standing back where I am, you'll see in the little gap there, steam engines come in all shapes and sizes. So we talked about the steamroller briefly earlier. The little steamroller just between these two Fowlers, old Butty, owned by Jez Kirkwood. This engine was made in the 1930s. It's a 1-ton steamroller, and it was made by Mr. Trotter, and he used it to roll around his property. So he rolled his drive with it, he rolled his lawn with it, and it's the most fabulous little engine that you'll ever see. And the size of the grin that Jez on his face, I think he's perhaps one of the happiest people on our site. But you know, the contrast between old Butty at 1 ton and foremost at probably 18, 19 tons. The power that drives them is the same. The technology that they use to make steam and drive the engines is the same, but the complexity of them and the scale is something quite different. So moving past foremost, we come to another very new restoration, new out on the scene this year, and this is I don't think it has a name particularly, but it's a big Fowler engine, road locomotive, initially operated by Coulson and Company at Park Royal. It appears in a lot of famous photographs of engines hauling heavy loads up into the north of Scotland and elsewhere, and it's a real testament and tribute to the family who restored it and brought it to us. It came to us a few years ago, and it looked lovely then. I think you'll agree looking at it today, it is absolutely stunning. And yeah, alright, it's another Fowler and I like it very much indeed. But heavy road engines, light road engines. So this is for hauling things like transformers and oil tanks and boilers and big heavy loads. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got what I would say is probably your Ford Transit of the steam world, whether that's a Fokker steam or before that, one of these. This is a Foster steam tractor. This is owned and restored by Ken Milnes, our vice chairman, and his family. His son Jacob is on the regulator there, and his cousin John steering. This was made for a Showman, but it wasn't made for a Showman in terms of a Showman's engine to ride ride. It was much more for moving smaller loads and getting the boss there quickly. It's a very fast little engine. It's called Nippon Kid, and it does. It lifts on quite nicely. It's a lovely engine, rebuilt like so many of these engines were from pretty much a wreck. This engine was mainly the boiler only and the cylinders, and Ken and family have recreated the rest with a lot of help from friends all across the UK. We're talking about long distance. engines and road locomotives. So we go back to a different maker of the road locomotive. So we've talked about the Fowlers pulling heavy loads. This is a Burrell road locomotive. It's again a compound engine. It has 2 cylinders that use the steam out the boiler twice before it goes up the chimney and makes that chuck noise. And whilst this engine was new to Devon, it's another of our very long distance visitors, perhaps one of our longest distance. We have 2 engines down from Aberdeenshire today, and this engine is owned by Alfie Chain. And there he is. Good afternoon, sir. Good to see you. Thanks for bringing it down. It's always a pleasure to welcome new engines to Shrewsbury. So do go and have a chat with Alfie about it and find out just what this engine is like. It's one of the fastest steam engines I know on the road that isn't a steam lorry, and it's a beautiful thing. Really nicely turned out. Another Fowler behind us, behind me, is Arthur Henton's Bell of the Wolds. Obviously an engine with Yorkshire origins, but now living in Leicestershire. And again, an engine like so many that come to Shrewsbury that travel on the road themselves. This is 2024, and we're still able to run these engines on the King's Highway. I used to say the Queen's Highway until last year, but so these engines are still road legal. They all have registration numbers on the front of them. They're all insured, and we all still have to go to the post office to tax them. We don't have to pay anything to tax them because they are historic vehicles and tax exempt, but I like to keep my post office open, so I go and see the nice people in my post office. I say I want to tax my engine. They say, I can't charge you anything, and I say, well, I'm not going to give you anything. So I go there, no money changes hands, and I get nothing back in return, but my engine is taxed and legal for the road, and all of these engines are road legal. And like I say, a good number of them have travelled under their own steam to be with us this weekend. So whilst it may be sometimes a nuisance to be caught behind one of these engines, it's still fabulous because this is 2024, this is heritage alive on the road, just as much as the Austin 7s are, as all the commercial vehicles are, and the vintage motorbike. These things are keeping our history and heritage alive on the road. Different, again, aspects to look at engines. Without going into detail, this engine is a Burrell single crank compound, so it again has the 2 steam cylinders, but they're mounted above each other. It still uses the steam twice, but it only has 1 set of moving parts. There are plenty of books that you can buy at places like the National Traction Engine Trust stall and stand at the top of the arena, which will give you more information if you want it for these sort of things. But the makers, we read about them in the poem. We talked about Burrells of Thetford, the engine behind us here, Ruston and Hornsby of Lincoln, terrific, an engine that started its life in Cornwall. A very simple, very practical designing machine, but when you start to look at the detail differences of them, Rustons were particularly known for very solidly made engines, really nicely engineered, practical machines that lasted a long time. And Terrific is a fine example of the Rustons. But number 59 we have to make a mention of, a Burrell, another single crank compound, but unlike the road locomotive, this is a traction engine. So it has they're not wanting me. Sorry, there's people on the phone on this engine. I thought they wanted me. No, apologies. So this is a Burrell traction engine. So unlike the road locomotive, the flywheel is spoked, because on a road loco, the flywheel is fated over so you don't frighten the horses, and all the moving parts are also exposed. You don't get that on a road loco. But number 59, Old Dutch here, I have to make a mention to, because it wasn't here last year. It was entered last year, but they couldn't get the engine here because the owner's granddaughter was being born. Grandson, sorry. Is here? Macy. So Macy, it's Macy's first birthday today. He's here with his family with the engine. And very happy birthday to you, mate. I hope you have a fantastic time with us, and thank you for bringing the engine down, and I hope to see you again next year and the years to come as you get bigger. So thank you very much to the whole family, and really good to see you all with us. Going back to the steam tractor idea, there's Brian Allison taking his repose on the Evelyn steam tractor. So this is very similar to the Nippon kit, the Foster that we looked at down the way. This is there for moving light goods, moving house, timber haulage, very simple things like that, but speedy, very fast on the road, very economical, able to be operated by one man, and so simple even Brian can do it. He's got a bell, so in a moment or two you'll hear all the engines whistle. Now, when a lot of them were new, the whistles were not the thing, because the whistles would frighten the horses. The whistles are really quite shrill, so they had to have a legal warning, and some of them had horns, the old bulb horns that honk, and they have a bell like Brian. Brian, can we just do your bell with the... Much as that might sound like time, gentlemen, please, that is a legal warning of the time that you would have in the towns and cities of the UK to tell you that steam engines are coming. Initially it was almost like way work of Satan approach it, but from the steam tractor we go to the steam car, and the Stanley steamer, they have a special entry quite often here at Salop. The steam car is very different mechanically, boiler wise. You'll see there is no chimney, there is no flywheel. It looks almost like some of the veteran and classic cars that we have on site here. The Stanley is virtually silent unless you have a non-condensing version. It's fast, they're great fun. And if you want to know more about the Stanleys, do go and have a chat with the owners of these, because the boilers are in here, inside the bonnet, and they are what's called flash steam boilers, is that right? Yep. Okay. Not a flash boiler. 600 tubes, and if I remember rightly, there's several miles of piano wire wound around them as well. Some of them not this. I'll go and find another one. Alright, Mr. Goddard tells me he has a proper one. Are you coming to summon me, Mr. Goddard, so that we can warn everybody? Yeah? Okay. So, much as I haven't finished the wandering round, I did say to folks about half an hour ago that we would be letting Telford know where Shrewsbury is, and if the engines are even louder they might even get as far as Wolverhampton or Brum. So if you have dogs with you, children or adults with sensory needs, sensory challenges, and the loud noise will be distressing or upsetting, please either move away from the arena for a minute or two, or cover your ears, your dog's ears, your children's ears, your partner's ears. The lady sitting next, no, maybe not that one, but we are on the count of 3 going to let Shropshire, the West Midlands, and possibly Warwickshire and Staffordshire know where Onslow Park is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, engine men, engine ladies, engine dogs, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I think we've succeeded. Right. I'm not going to get a word in edgeways, am I, with this lot? Two more unconventional steamrollers headed
Who are you
what you're talking about, I don't.
No, I don't know what I'm talking about. Either I'm making it all up. You should know that by now. Yeah, quite good. What you're seeing happening this afternoon is this is our steam playpen,
Yep.
and we're about to have a demonstration of steam power, where we have the Foden Prospector towing other engines into the arena, so you can see just how much an engine can pull. So there appears to have been a small matter of traction just lost as he was coming into the arena. So we'll just give them a minute or two while they get sorted out and bring the engines in.